is happening, my YouTube friends and family? Hope everyone's doing well. Sitting here at the plant, waiting for them to load my trailer up. Going to Vegas tonight. It's just gonna be a quick out and back. I've gotten a lot of questions on what I'm doing and why. I thought it was clear why, but maybe I'll make another video on what exactly I'm doing. It's not a bad gig. Yeah, it's not a bad gig. And if I start trying to explain what I'm doing and how much I'm making, this video will get way too long. So, and maybe I'll put one together where it's kind of specific to what I do now and the pay schedule. We basically get by the mile plus hourly for any time the truck is stopped or any time we're at the plant. Right now I'm being paid hourly to wait for my trailer. I've been sitting here for a while, but and tonight my whole trip is hourly. It's not one of my team loads, so I'm gonna get almost 40 bucks an hour to go to Vegas and back. And since I won't make it back in 8 hours, and this is Southern California, my job is based out of Southern California, I'm gonna get overtime and double time on this trip. So not a bad little gig. I'm liking the work. Anyway, so it's no secret, you know, I can see on my analyticals, people that watch my channels, I know whose else channels you guys watch. And so when I make these videos and I talk about other people, it's only because I know you guys are watching them, and it gives credibility when I say go to this guy's channel, because I know you guys are watching it anyways. And so Kobe Pegway, on his very first video, if you go to his channel, and for those of you guys that don't know Kobe Pegway, he's probably the most popular box truck guy out there. You know, you could say that's like the rags to riches story, because his start with Amazon, he had 2 trucks running when Amazon sent him an email saying, can you provide 10? And he took a leap of faith and said yes, even though he didn't have them, and he went out and rented them. That was before the market went crazy and you couldn't find them anymore. So he was able to pull it off. Could you pull that off today? Probably not. But, you know, right place, right time, smart guy, successful. You know, I tip my hat to him. Anyways, if you go to his very first video, guys, he makes an excellent point. You need to know what you're going to do. You need to know what your plan is. What type of work you're going to do. And a big concern that I have with a lot of you guys jumping in is you don't know anything about the business, but you're going to go make this big investment. And I'm sorry about the glare there. This truck doesn't have a windshield curtain. It only has the rear curtain, because technically the truck's always moving. This is rare that the truck is sitting. Ordinarily, when you do a local run like this, they would put you in a day cab, but it's our truck. So I'm gonna run a local run. I'm gonna run our truck where I got my food and my cooler and everything else. Anyways, so getting back to the point, if you consider what Kobe Pegway said, you have to know what you're gonna do. So that kind of, you know, creates a situation with, if I were to buy a box truck, because I have a CDL. And so let me just kind of say, I'm gonna break it down 2 ways. If I didn't have a CDL, and then if I did. So with the non-CDL, you know, most of you guys are just going out and buying like a Rider or an Enterprise spec, and you know, it's not a bad idea, but you have to remember that when Ryder, Enterprise, and all these other companies spec these trucks, they're buying fleets of them, and they're trying to save money in doing so. And so they get the smallest motor, and to make up for its power disadvantage, they give it low gear ratios. So these things are screaming rolling down the highway, engine-wise. I'd like to point out that quite a few YouTubers are saying, you know, it doesn't matter if you find yourself a 300,000 mile truck and you pay 70,000 for it, because these things will last 1,000,000 miles. It's not true, guys. The motors that come in these things are not built like your semi-truck motors, with maybe the exception of the older International DT 466E. I don't know why it keeps getting lighter and darker. Let's see if that's a little better. So anyways, maybe because the sun's trying to set. Anyway, So like your Cummins 6.7, your Power Stroke, I'm brain fading on what other motors are out there, but those motors are not million-mile motors. They're not what's called a wet liner. Most of them don't have a deep skirt, and they're not built to the same standard. Okay, if you get 500,000 out of these things, you had a good day. Oh, the Cat 3126 B or the C7, same thing. Same thing. No wet liner. The only one that had a wet liner was the Detroit DT466E, or later called the Max Force DT. And I would stay away from the DT, the Max Force DT. That one had like twin turbos and EGR and a whole bunch of other things that create problems. The older ones, the DT466E, legendary reliability, but they're underpowered. Anyway, so non-CDL. So if I was gonna get a non-CDL truck, you know, the Ford Freightliner, the International, the Hinos, they're all kind of the same. I would try and get myself, for that particular application, I would try and get myself an automatic. And I know I beat up on automatics, but for the application, and you're going to put every Tom, Dick, and Harry in it, you're better off with an automatic. I would try and get air brakes and air ride suspension. Contrary to what some people think, air brakes do not force you to get a CDL. Air brakes are a restriction, not an endorsement. If you can find an International or a Freightliner in an extended cab, I would try and buy that one. Again, you have to know what you're going to do. Are you going to run local, 200-mile radius and be home every night? Or are you going to go over the road? I think if you watch some of these YouTubers, you realize some of them started with the idea of Amazon, then they realize it's not as good as, it's not as good as YouTube makes it seem. And so then they start going over the road, and they're stuck with one seat and then a bench, and that's where a lot of these guys are trying to sleep. Watch these YouTubers closely, and you'll see they end up sleeping in the truck. Anyways, so air brakes, air ride suspension, the lift gate, if you can find it in an aluminum, I almost tongue-tied myself there. It just saves a little bit of weight. Those things are kind of, how do I put it? Generic. And so, which one would I get? I would stay away from the Max Force V8s. I really can't tell you which one to get, but I can tell you which ones to stay away from. So I would stay away from the Max Force V8s. The inline 6 aren't as bad, but the Max Force V8 is basically the same engine that gave Ford so many problems, branded the Power Stroke, the 6.0 and the 6.4. That's what's in a Max Force V8. It's the same engine. So I'd stay away from that. If you can find an International with a Cummins motor, that's probably your best bet. The Cummins motor is, in my opinion, the most reliable, longest lasting, most durable motor. And I believe you can get those in Fords, Internationals, and the Hinos. I believe you can get them in all of them. I think you could even get them in Freightliner. I'd have to actually open up one of their catalogs to see if they can or not. I would stay away from the Mercedes-Benz motor that's available in the Freightliners. I just wouldn't do those. Hard to get parts, and a lot of people are kind of afraid of working on them. Other than that, they're all kind of, they all are kind of the same thing. And so if you're new to this and you're looking to get in, this is the recommendation I would give and why. So me having my Class A CDL with endorsements, I would opt for a heavier truck, still a 26-foot box truck, but I would get the heavier gross vehicle weight rating that requires a Class B. And right now you're shaking your heads, but remember, we have to decide what we're going to do. So you can make in some markets good money local moving, like you do one pick for a shipper and he's got like 4 or 5 drops within a given market. And I know just from watching YouTube, I know areas like Atlanta is good for that. Some markets not so much, it's tougher. And so you have to know what you're going to do, and that goes back to points I've made in other videos. It's really difficult to jump into a trucking business when you've never done it before. It's almost like you need to go get a job driving a box truck and really understand what the market has to offer and what its shortcomings are. So if it were me, I'd get a 33,000 pound gross vehicle weight truck, and I would opt for either the Freightliner or the International with the extended cab. And the reason for the extended cab, guys, is it only adds about 2.5 feet to the truck's overall length, but you get a DOT approved sleeper in the back. And so that gives you flexibility, not just, oh, I don't have to sleep on the hump, as they call it. It's not just that. So when you show up to a shipper and you're not loading yourself and they're going to load you and you're going to sit there for a while, you can log off duty, and as long as you're off duty for more than 2 hours, it freezes your 14-hour clock. So let's just say they hold you there for 4.5, 5 hours. Aside from the fact that you can request to get detention pay, you now froze your clock. So when you start moving again, you can continue your 14-hour clock, and those 4 hours you sat there, it's almost like they didn't happen. The only caveat is at the end of your shift, you have to log a minimum of 8 hours in the sleeper. If you don't have the sleeper, you can't do that. So that gives you flexibility, whereas without a sleeper, you'd run out of hours 4 hours earlier. See where I went with that? Excuse me a sec. And so, okay, Miguel, why do you say get a CDL? Don't you understand that drivers are hard to come by? That's where you got to ask yourself, am I going to drive the truck? Am I going to be the driver, or is it my idea I'm going to put drivers in it? Because understand, if you get drivers, they're not going to push as hard as you do. They're not going to have the same mentality you do. They're not going to try and save money like you will. You almost have to drive your truck in the beginning. And I believe that even if it's your plan to grow the business and you want to have a fleet, you need to get your feet wet with that and get out there and do some of it yourself. So if you're going to have a fleet, then yes, maybe doing non-CDL is better. If it's you just want to have a truck for you and make a good living and that kind of thing, go with the CDL, get your CDL. Why? Because like me, you can go and find another job that pays. In my particular case, because I have my hazmat and I don't have any felonies, this job is like 170 grand a year. And then I got another gig paying me a little over 100 grand on the side for some consulting work. So I'm not doing too bad. And this is 4 days a week. So, anyway, so why CDL? Well, some people think that IFTA filings cost you money, but in reality, it doesn't. I've had IFTA filings where they give me a check back. So don't consider that being a cost. But the other thing is, depending on how many states you run, your apportion tag only charges you for the states you run in. Your first year, you're going to have to pay the full boat. Okay, so on my semi trucks, year one is like $2,000, just under $2,000. But when we were running oil field and we only ran between Texas and New Mexico for a full-size 80,000 pound semi, I was paying about $400 a year. Can you register a box truck for less than that? I don't think so. So the biggest reason, and I know I'm kind of like, I don't script my shit. It's not, I don't have a list. So the biggest reason for having a box truck, that's CDL versus non-CDL. The difference is about 5,000 or 6,000 pounds in payload. So let's put that bad boy in park for a minute. Everybody and their mama is getting a non-CDL truck because, let's face it, you can put your girlfriend in it, you can put your next door neighbor in it, you can put anyone in it, And so the market is flooded with everybody that tried to get in. And what's happening to loads, if you guys watch, wow, I'm brain fading, and that's sad because I like his channel. Man, this is horrible. Big Vic TV, my apologies. So if you guys watch his, couple videos ago, where he was kind of replying to Lover of Engines, you know, regarding what the brokers are doing to us in the industry. Honestly, I don't think they're doing it to us. I think we're doing it to ourselves, but that's like a whole different video. You know, he's like, well, brokers say, you know, you're taking half the load, so it should be half the rate. First thing you guys need to do when you consider that statement is, so a dry van can take twice as many pallets as a 26-foot box truck. So if you do 12, we can do 24. So if a broker calls me up and says, I got 12 pallets that weigh 10,000 pounds and I want to pay you half the lane rate, I'm not taking it. I'll look for a bigger, heavier load. That load can sit. If you want to pay me the full rate, then I get the benefit of not burning as much fuel because it's light. Most of us dry van operators, guys, we don't do partials. We're not an LTL business. That's what a box truck is. You guys are an LTL business, and that's why you should be getting more per mile, and you're not. Anyway, so why am I making this point? Because we don't take, if a lane is $3 a mile, we don't take $1.50. We just don't. If the lane's $3, we want $3.50, and then we'll argue and negotiate back towards $3. But if you have a box truck and they say, well, you know, it's a half a semi load, so we want to pay $1.50. The unfortunate thing is, you don't need business sense to go down to Enterprise and rent a truck and get your EIN and you're a box truck operator. You just don't need that. Most people that work their way up into semis, they work their way up other ways. Either they drove a truck and then they learned the business and then they bought their own. Maybe they became a lease operator, or they did one of those lease purchases within a company. I don't really care for those, but some people start that way. And so most of us understand the business a little better. We just won't touch that freight. So if you say that a non-CDL truck has a maximum payload, let's say you don't have a tailgate, and let's just say your maximum payload is 10,000 pounds. Well, now a CDL truck can do 15 or 16,000 pounds. You see what just happened there? You just eliminated all of the non-CDL truckers. So you're not competing against Box Truck Couple, Big Vic TV, Trucking Out the Box, and I'm not mentioning them to you know, badmouth them. What I'm saying is, all of their gain no longer works because they can't put it on their truck. And so, okay, this broker says to you, well, it's a half a truckload, you know. Yeah, he can't do that. Why? Because a non-CDL truck can't take the load. If you got a 13,000 pound load, you're either going to get a semi and pay for a semi, or you're going to pay me what I'm asking for. That just puts you in a niche. So you get that niche, you get better rate, or you pick up multiple loads, which you box truck guys can do because you have your lift gate and you have your pallet jack, and you can offload and switch, and you guys can do this. We with the dry vans, we're pretty much no touch. You know, I'm 54. I don't want to touch anybody's anything. That came out wrong, but even with this job I got now, I attach one hose and the trailer unloads itself. You know, I do a whole lot of paperwork, a whole lot of pressure reading and temperature taking, but you know, I don't manually anything. And so I've always said I have respect for the box truck operator because you guys work. You know, if you're pushing pallets in and out of your truck, tip my hat, you know, kudos. It's kind of a younger man's thing, but, you know, to each their own. So now you've created a niche for yourself. You can haul stuff that the others can't, or you can combine, you know, a non-CDL load. Let's say it's 3 or 4 pallets and it's 4,000 pounds, 6,000 pounds, and then there's another 2 or 3 pallets somewhere else, and combined it's 12,000 pounds. You can do that with a CDL truck. You can't do that with your non-CDL trucks. So my take is I would pursue getting my CDL because it's a great backup. You know, in my particular case, it helped me get this gig where I'm not going to get rich working here, guys, but it's going to pay the bills and it's going to let me not stress about, you know, truck values are going down, insurance is going up, fuel's going up, rates are going down. This gig I'm doing right now is damn near recession proof. And so, in fact, I've talked to a few other drivers and they're like, yeah, housing market collapsed. Most of us bought houses then because, you know, we're making 150 grand a year over here and people are losing their homes left and right. So there's a couple guys here that are sitting on some pretty nice pads that they bought when the housing market crashed. So, you know, it's a good backup. Having your CDL is a good backup. Get your CDL, get yourself a CDL truck, and you can have a niche in the market. You're going to have loads that are light for a semi truck, so now you will be competing with a semi truck, but you're going to have the advantage of you're easier to maneuver. You're going to be quicker up and down the hills. You won't be much better on fuel efficiency, believe it or not. For some reason, people think, you know, small truck, small engine. It doesn't work that way. These trucks are built to run, and that's probably like another topic I really want to touch on. Anyways, so if you get your CDL truck, don't do the 6.7 Cummins or the Power Stroke or the little Max Force engine. Try to get yourself something with the 8-liter Cummins. I think they call it a 9 now. I think it's like a something 9, I forget. And so, okay, for the CDL type truck, I would avoid the PACCAR product, not because it's a bad product. It's an excellent product. It's built, in my opinion, better quality than the other manufacturers. But, you know, part of the cool guy look that Peterbilt has is their cabs are really narrow. And so if you don't have a sleeper and you're going to sleep in that truck, you're not going to fit going sideways. You can literally lock both doors by doing, you know, with both hands at the same time. Kind of reminds me of an old Toyota pickup truck. And so I'd avoid the PACCARs. I would still stick with the idea of an International, but now you're going to get a heavier duty one, or the Freightliner series, but you're not going to get like a 106. You're going to get something bigger. I think it's like a 119 or something like that. I forget what they call it. And so you're going to get the bigger truck. The truck's not going to be that much heavier, other than you're going to have a bigger engine, and with the transmission at that point, it's kind of a toss-up. But me personally, I would try and get myself a 10-speed manual. If you get the bigger Cummins motor, you're going to have over 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. You're going to be making like 350 horse, and if you get yourself a manual gearbox, you're going to be flying up the hills, even maxed out at 30,000 pounds. And then for your tanks, I would get minimum of dual 80-gallon tanks. Why? Because now you can pick and choose where you buy your fuel, and you can go several hundred miles across states where tax and fuel rates are not to your benefit. So that's kind of my idea for if I did a box truck. I would try and get an aluminum box that is up to 13.5 foot tall. It's going to burn you more fuel, but the upside is you can fit bigger freight. That's a big deal. So the taller box, if you're buying new and you get to pick your options, order the cap that goes on the front over the cab. It's curved, it's a dome. That helps you with some fuel savings. And then try and get yourself a tire carrier so you can have a wheel and tire combination on board all the time, and that will save you I'll save you about $700 first time you have a blowout. Again, go with an all aluminum lift gate. It'll save you some weight. Air ride suspension, and with the big trucks, you can get air ride steer axle. I would push for that. I would try and find one with steel. If you're going to custom order it, you're going to custom order it, and they'll make it however you want. So, choice would be International or Freightliner. There's more Freightliner dealerships nationwide, and so I would probably side with the Freightliner just for that. The bigger Cummins motor, I think it's like an 8-liter or something like that. I really should have researched it more, but I'm trying to whip this out while I'm waiting for my trailer. If you get the air ride suspension front and back, guys, what you can do is you can have meters put on your dash, gauges that tell you how much air is in each, and then when you get fully loaded and you're at your maximum payload, you can go down to a scale, make sure you're correct, and then take note of how much pressure is in your suspension, and now you know as someone's loading you if they're overloading you. You're not going to leave the shipper only to find out, oh, you're overweight, now you got to come back. Your gauges will tell you. Semi trucks have them, and so you can, typically on a semi truck, the rear suspension, if it hits 60 psi, you're really close. You need to go scale yourself. The place I'm working at now, they load each trailer on a scale, so they know exactly what's on the trailer, and they won't give it to me over what I can carry. But when you're going to a shipper, people say brokers cheat and lie, people say shippers cheat and lie. Whoever it may be, you end up with more weight than you should have. Now here's the upside to the CDL truck. You negotiate your deal with a shipper when you're a non-CDL, and they tell you, oh, it weighs 8,000 pounds. So you show up and you look at it and you're like, man, this looks like a lot of weight for 8,000 pounds. You go down to the scale and you weigh 30,000 pounds. Now what? You call the broker and say, hey dude, you wasted my whole day here and this is too much weight. You're gonna either have to take some off, or you're gonna have to pay me to go return all this shit, and you lose money. But if you're a CDL truck, you can tell them this isn't right, this isn't the right weight, so you're gonna pay me more, which you can do it. You can keep the weight on board, or I'm gonna take it back and you're gonna pay me. You're gonna pay me my truck order not used. So now you got the broker where you want him, because he knows if you take it back, another CDL carrier or another non-CDL carrier cannot do it, and he's gonna be stuck going to a rig or pay you. And if this is a regular shipment, guess who just got front row seats to negotiate a regular shipment, i.e. a dedicated route. Anyways, guys, those are my thoughts. I didn't bring up the Ford in either or, and here's the reason why. So the Ford shares, and it's not a bad choice, okay? I'm not saying I don't like or wouldn't do Ford. So the Ford, aside from the fact that it's got their own proprietary engine, I've had bad luck with those in the oil field, but the oil field's really difficult on any product. But so the Ford uses the same cab. It's the same Super Duty cab from the F250, 350, 450, 550, 650, 750. They're the same cab, okay? The differences are in the floor of the cab, so it can accommodate the bigger engine, and so the seat configuration's a little bit different, but I've been told from people you can move the pickup truck seats over to them with a couple brackets and it works. But the problem is the cab is just as narrow as the pickup truck cabs, and so even if you get that in an extended cab and you put a bed back there, it's still not a sleeper. And that comes from the hotshot world. The guys that use those for hot shotting, it's technically not a sleeper. And so I'd stay away from it, just because I would really try hard to have myself a legal sleeper so that you can take advantage of those longer hauls where maybe you just need a one-night layover and it saves you on the hotel and you're better rested. Anyways, I really need to start taking notes before I start these, because I'm trying to end the video and I'm thinking I forgot something, but I think I covered most of it. As always, guys, thanks for watching. I still got a little bit more time before my trailer's ready, but it is what it is. I'm being paid. Pay the man.